So the final lesson from this section talks about how to avoid common programming mistakes with Java streams. And just to make the discussions concrete, we're going to be discussing these things in the context of our search with sequential streams example that we've been talking about, with a few other things that demonstrate a few points that don't really show up in search with sequential streams. You should also take a look at this link here. It's called 10 Subtle Mistakes When Using the Streams API. That goes into what I'm about to talk about in more detail in some of the areas we're going to discuss. So take a look at that. I think you'll find it very useful. OK, so let's take a look at some mistakes. One mistake, don't forget to put the terminal operation at the end of your stream. So for example, here's a little snippet of code that's similar to our search with sequential streams examples we've looked at. We're going to get ourselves a list of character sequences. We're going to take that list of character sequences, turn it into a stream, and call map. But oh, we forgot to call collect. So nothing happens. And this is a very common mistake when you're first learning about streams. And I did that myself on a couple of occasions. I was like, why isn't my program running? And it's because I forgot to put the terminal operation to start things working. So just keep that in mind. Once you've done it a couple times, you'll probably never do it again, but it's an easy mistake to make at the beginning. Also, remember that a stream can only be traversed once. So here's an example where we're going to, kind of similar example to before. This time, we're going to go ahead and stash the stream of lists of search results in this local variable s. So this will make us a stream. Of course, it won't actually have done anything yet. And then we try to go ahead and call for each twice. We call s.forEach and s.forEach. And what will happen if we do this is the second time we try to call this, we'll get the java.lang.illegalState exception, which says basically you can't call a terminal operation on a stream more than once. If you want to do this, you have to go back over and get the source and do everything from the beginning again. You can't get a stream and call it multiple times. You can't call a terminal operation on it multiple times. That's also a kind of weird mistake that I've done a couple of times when I was learning streams, but I don't do it anymore. But it's an easy mistake to make. A more subtle mistake is don't modify the backing collection of a stream. In other words, the thing that the stream is streaming over, the source of the input. And this example doesn't quite fit in with the sequential search stream gang program. So I have a separate example here in my Java 8 folder called EX11. So in this case, we're going to make ourselves a list of 10 integers in the range from 1 to 9. So we say int stream. So we make 10 integers from 1 to 9, non-inclusive. We box them up. We take the primitive ints and box them up into integers, and then we collect them into a list of integers. So we have a list of integers. OK, so far, so good. Now we're going to take that list of integers. We're going to create a stream of integers, and we're going to call the peek operation. And peek is an operation that's really intended to be used for debugging purposes. It basically takes a stream element, and you can do something to it. Typically, what you do is you print it, or you look at it to see what its value is. But in this case, just to cause trouble, we're going to pass in the remove method. So when we peek at the element, it's going to go ahead and remove that element from the underlying list. And not surprisingly, this is going to cause chaos and insanity, because we're removing the list that we're trying to stream over. And that is going to cause a lot of problems. So you'll probably get some kind of exception. Here's an example of just one example of what happens when you run this. We're going to print out the results. And so we print out some results, and then we get a bunch of nulls, and we finally get an exception. And whatever happens, it's likely to be very weird. And it gets even weirder if you try to use parallel streams, because then it blows up even more bizarrely. Also remember that a stream holds no non-transient storage. So if you have a stream and you want the values of the stream to persist, they will not persist unless you explicitly persist them somehow. So you need to put them in some sort of a database if you want them to keep their state. Otherwise, if your program were to crash while the stream was running, whatever was in that memory, those memory buffers would be lost. So you're responsible for persisting things. OK, so those are just a couple mistakes that I've found. Hopefully you guys won't have those problems, but never hurts to be aware of common things I've seen, certainly from my own programming experience.